So there is something about chemistry that has just always fascinated me. And if I regret anything in my life, it's that I didn't follow in my father's footsteps and take the study of science a little more seriously. On the other hand, that's probably a good thing because I just don't think there's any scenario in which my personality, allied with advanced scientific knowledge, would have produced anything other than a mad scientist type supervillain. Nevertheless, I do know a few things about the sciences, and so now I want to spend a little bit of time sharing some of my favorite science demonstrations with you. The very first one I'm going to do is commonly referred to as Elephant's Toothpaste. So you've probably seen this sort of thing before, where you have, two beakers full of chemicals, you mix them together, and it erupts into this giant foamy mess. That's basically what this is, with the added benefit that it's an exothermic reaction, so it produces a lot of heat, and if the atmospheric conditions are right, it will also produce a lot of steam. So without further ado, I present to you Elephant Toothpaste. This is actually a simple demonstration and can be done with a few easily obtainable chemicals. You will need water, ordinary dish soap, potassium permanganate, and a 30% solution of hydrogen peroxide. Okay, I know what you're probably already saying. Potassium per what-anate? And is this the hydrogen peroxide you buy at the store? Well, relax. I'm going to explain all of that to you in a few minutes. But before I get into all of that, I want to just get straight to the demonstration. The quantities don't need to be exact. It's safe enough to eyeball most of this. I'm going to start off with 1 ounce of water. Ordinary tap water is fine. Then you're going to add about 1/4 teaspoon of the potassium permanganate. You're going to add just enough to make the water nice purple color. I'll make sure you stir that up so that it's thoroughly mixed. Now to this concentrated hydrogen peroxide, we're just going to add a little bit of regular dish soap. To provide the foam. So now we have our 2 containers that we're going to be working with. At this point, we're going to want to take this outside. It does get very messy and this stuff can stain. Okay, so we've got our hydrogen peroxide with the dish soap in it. We've got our potassium permanganate solution. Okay, so we're just going to pour this in. Then you want to get your hand out of the way quickly because this stuff is caustic and it will erupt and produce an exothermic reaction. So that's a fairly disgusting mess. I think you can understand now why they call it elephant toothpaste. Depending on how much water and how much solution you use, it'll change the density of the foam. A lot of times it'll come out in one big thick solid tube. This time it actually looks kind of like the toothpaste after the elephant was done with it. If you get close, you can actually feel the heat rising off of this. You might even be able to see the steam rising off of it. Okay, so now we're going to go into some of the nitty-gritty details. This is the potassium permanganate, which as you've seen is kind of a grayish black powder that turns bright purple in water. It has a lot of different applications. It's used as a water purifier. It's also used to treat certain bacterial infections and rashes on skin. So don't worry too much if you get any of this on your skin. It'll stain, but it's not harmful. It is potentially toxic if ingested though, so try not to breathe any of it in or get any of it in your mouth. It's also pretty easy to find. I got this bottle online, I think from eBay, for about $4, but you can also buy it in swimming pool supply stores where it's sold as a water purifier. You can also find it in camping and sporting goods stores because not only is it useful as a water purifier in the wild, it can also be used to start a chemical reaction that can be used to start campfires, which I'll be showing you in a later video. Now the hydrogen peroxide is a little bit trickier. This is the hydrogen peroxide that you can buy in pretty much any store. But if you look on the back, you'll see that it is only 3%, which is not nearly strong enough for what we need. You can buy stronger concentrations of hydrogen peroxide in health food stores, where it's used as a medicine and also as a sort of dietary supplement. You can also find it in beauty supply stores where it's used as a hair bleach. But even those products are only about 12%, which is still not strong enough for what we need. And on top of that, they are pretty expensive for what you're buying. Now you can get even stronger concentrations, again, at swimming pool supply stores. Those are just a clearinghouse of fun chemicals. You can also buy it online. The problem is that nobody sells it in small amounts, and you only need a very small amount for this demonstration. Now if you want to go and buy a whole gallon of it, you can, and it'll run you about $18 to $20. But the likelihood that you're ever going to need it for anything else is pretty slim, so you're just going to spend a lot of money and have a lot of this stuff sitting around for no good purpose. However, if you do want to get a small amount of a stronger concentration of hydrogen peroxide, you can actually do it at home very cheaply. It's not difficult to do, but you do need to proceed with caution. You're going to start off with 2 of the bottles, the 32-ounce bottles of hydrogen peroxide, the regular 3% solution that they sell in the first aid aisle of any grocery store, pharmacy, superstore, you name it. These will run you, they shouldn't run you more than $1 a piece. Now to concentrate this down into a stronger solution, from what I'm hearing, a lot of people seem to prefer boiling it down to the desired concentration. However, I do not recommend this for several reasons. 1, it produces toxic vapors that you really don't want to have around your house. 2, it has to be done very slowly over low heat in a glass or Pyrex container because it is corrosive and it will damage anything with a metallic finish. 3, boiling it down will take approximately 4 to 6 hours, and you have to sit and monitor it very closely the entire time to make sure that nothing goes wrong. And 4, keeping your stove burning even at low heat for that length of time just seems like a huge waste of energy, especially when there is an easier option available, namely freezing. Hydrogen peroxide freezes at a slightly lower temperature than water, so you can actually freeze the water out of this and leave stronger peroxide. It won't be exactly 30%, but it will be close enough for our purposes. All you have to do is pour the peroxide into a large Ziploc freezer bag and then pop it in the freezer for about 8 hours. At that point, the water content will freeze into ice and separate from the hydrogen peroxide, leaving a much stronger solution. Now that stronger solution will damage your skin if you touch it, so when you take it out of the freezer, please handle it with caution. It's also important that you don't take it out too soon because that'll leave the solution too weak. It's also important that you don't leave it in too long because that'll freeze the hydrogen peroxide solid along with the water. This is the hydrogen peroxide after about 8 hours in the freezer. As you can see, it's mostly solid. Most of it is frozen out, but you can see there is still some liquid inside. That is the concentrated hydrogen peroxide solution. So now we just have to get it out of here and into a more friendly container. All I did was open the Ziploc bag and pour it into a beaker. And yes, I know, I spilled. You don't need to point it out. And that's about it. about $2 for hydrogen peroxide, a $4 bottle of potassium permanganate, which is actually not a bad investment considering all the other fun things you can do with it. Add a little bit of tap water and some dish soap, and you have a fun, flashy, messy, mad scientist activity. And stay tuned because I do have more of these coming. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Till next time.